Hey, Riles.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
How are you?
Good. How you making out?
Good. Thanks for doing this.
No problem.
Yeah. So the last segment that I just did was all young guys, and I was talking about more of the recent stretch that the Flyers have kind of been on here. They've actually been winning some games, and I talked about more the month of March, and some of the guys that I kind of broke down were Frost, Tippett, Cates, and York. Out of those guys, Riley, and for you, obviously, you guys have been doing the podcast and everything, which is great. Who are some of those guys? Who of those guys, I guess, I should say, has impressed you the most for this season so far?
They all have their shining moments, but I like Tippett. I mean, I like them coming into this thing. He is a first rounder, so I mean, obviously he should be able to play. But I see this guy scoring more goals. I mean, he obviously, I don't know how many he's got it right now, 25 or so. But he's he can score the goal. He can score goals. I mean, there's no question. He can skate. He's big. I really like him. Frost, obviously, this last stretch. He's a shifty guy, different type of player. But like a guy like Tippett. I mean, again, if this guy can score you 40, that's a huge. That's a huge step in the right direction. And Noah Cates too. I mean, I like these guys. It's just interesting psychology towards the end of the season, especially when you're not in playoffs, right? You're playing for your life. You're playing for your life. There's so much urgency, so you can see the urgency in these guys because they're playing for a spot next year. There's no question. I mean, obviously, a guy like Owen Tippett. These guys got the spots already, but like these guys are at ice time. So
Right.
like you kind of play a different brand when you have nothing to lose. As a team, maybe you're trying things that you would normally wouldn't try, a little more confidence, whatever that lands up being. Because it's kind of like being behind in a game, right? It's always like a 2-goal lead. It's the worst lead in hockey because you kind of play a different way, and you're not carrying as much. You're not gripping the stick as tight, or whatever that looks like. But
Right.
I don't know. But I think there's another dimension to all these guys' games. I think there's another dimension to Tippett's game. I was at the game where he scored the hat trick. Like you could see right from the start, this guy was on fire and he was going to score. He could have scored 6 or 7 goals that game, But it shows you the potential he has. And I'd like to see where it goes for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially too because obviously the team right now they're not scoring as much, and scoring has been down for most of the year. And if the power play, and I was just mentioning this too, if the power play could get somewhat better, and not be dead last in the league. It's going to be 2 years in a row that the power play is going to be dead last.
Yeah, that's not good.
No,
that's not good.
Especially when you have enough talent on the power play, just young guys, outside and just the whole team in general, minusing young guys and everything. There's enough, talent on the power play and just the team to where you could definitely score more on the power play. But that's a different topic for a different day.
Yeah.
And I really like what you said about that because I think there's definitely something that you can find in a young player and not even really just young player, but any player in general when you're out of it, like you're saying. And for you, like you obviously coached in Lehigh Valley for 7 years. How important is it for those guys as well, like the guys down in the Phantoms, to at least get into the playoffs? Because Torts has talked about it before. Obviously, he coached, and how important it is for just development, right? I believe with the Phantoms, I don't think you guys made the playoffs outside of the one season. But just overall, like how important is that just for growing your game and not even just like your game hockey wise, but just mentally, like knowing like, hey, like we can do this type thing.
Yeah, I think it teaches winning, right? I mean, it teaches you the grind. It teaches you how much work it takes to be a pro hockey player. You know what I mean? It's no one likes to be the team that doesn't make playoffs. But if the going that extra mile, getting that first round, second round, you're learning how to win. You're creating a culture. You're understanding what that feels like.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way. Not to mention you're getting more reps, right? More practice. I mean, you're practicing less, but you're playing more games. You're playing in critical situations, games are on the line. You're pressure situations, experience, right? I mean, there's nothing quite like it. You gotta get the reps in, you gotta get the experience, and so surely adding an extra minimum of 4 games, plus into your to your season games wise is great for personal development, player development. So, but as a collective, as a team, right? You're learning how to win. Teams want winners. Generally when you see Stanley Cup championships or Calder Cup championships or East Coast League championships, like the guys that win will sign contracts. You know what I mean? They'll find a place because teams want winners. They want guys that have experience with winning and leadership and all that good stuff. So yeah, to me it's great for the young guys to play in postseason, get the reps in, get the feel of that playoff atmosphere. So when they do, hopefully find their way to the Flyers, whatever organization they land up in, that when they do get the shot to play in an NHL playoff game, they've already been there. They felt that before, that energy. They know what's up. So.
Right.
At least that's my perspective.
Right, for sure. I mean, and like for you, I feel like you could probably answer this better, right? Because you were 23 when you won with the Phantoms.
Yes, 2004, 2005.
Yeah. So I mean, and just for you, like, obviously that can kind of change that too, and kind of like what you were saying, you can get more games out of it. Just kind of going off on the team a little bit, and really for you guys and the podcast. The episode with Nick Delorier, I think I've watched that like 8 times.
Oh yeah,
because one, I love Delorier, and I think that's he's one of the signings that I was livid when they did it, because I'm like, well, they didn't get Goudreau, and then I thought about it. I said that's a really smart signing. I had to separate the Phantom a little bit, right. But again, he's talked about a lot, and he talked about it a lot on your guys' show, just about being a pro, and obviously you were in that type of role too, and played that same style. How important is that to kind of learn as as a younger player how to be a pro and just kind of manage your game in that sense?
I think it's one of the most important things, because everything gets better when you understand what a pro means, what it is. Once you start living it, like your game gets better, your mindset gets better, your performance gets better. There's a lot of things that go into being a pro, right? I mean, it's the way you carry yourself. It's being able to manage your emotions. It's knowing your body, putting in the effort, but also understanding the amount of rest and regeneration that we need. Just understanding the way the machine operates. There's a lot that goes into it, but like the sooner you can understand this and say become a pro. I mean, I've coached guys that I would say are absolute pros that never played an NHL game. I'm like, this guy's a pro. Again, everything, his attitude, the way he carries himself, the amount of work, again, like all this stuff. There's a lot of different variables there, but I think it's super important, because those guys generally last longer. They have longer careers. They stay healthier. Because they understand the way it works, and nothing's guaranteed. Injuries are definitely sometimes inevitable, but taking care of the body, like a guy like Jim Dowd, it was my first year with the Flyers. He was my centerman. He was an absolute pro. He's 40 years old, and he was still grinding, still the first guy up in the weight room, stretching out, rolling out. And he had a back injury like 9 years before, which they told him they would never play again, and he didn't accept that, and he just and he's a fourth line guy every team he's been on. There was a role for this guy because he was just able to stay durable, he stay healthy,
right,
and be accepting of that role. Absolute pro. And I learned a lot from Jim Dowd, and most guys don't know who he is. And, 20 years in the NHL, being a fourth line centerman, and there's several of these guys, Blair Betts. Through the, I'm just thinking I could name 1,000 of them, but like guys that maybe had more like limited roles, but like were absolute pros, and that's why they held on to these jobs for so long. I mean, it definitely is an important ingredient, and you hope that guys can mature and become that sooner or later, because again, team performance improves as well as individual performance, obviously. Right,
exactly. For next season, the Flyers have they've already, Torts has already came out and said no captain. What are you, what are your overall thoughts on that? I know you guys have talked about it, but for me, I think it's a good thing, but also at the same time, it doesn't really worry me, because it's like for this year, I think it's like another one of them years you have to kind of scratch off, because you didn't have Atkinson, you didn't have Couturier. That's still those two guys are definitely still candidates for it. The other thing is it also gives more time for younger guys, like, say Noah Cates, who I actually brought up last week on the show, that, or it was brought up by the other guest I had, Jamie Basco, that, he could be potentially a captain too. Just overall though, what are your thoughts on not having a captain next year? And if you were to pick one, I guess for right now, a really early pick, who would it be?
Well, I'm not too sure on the strategy of what he's trying to accomplish with it. And to talk about this far out from the season. To me, it's like a non-issue either way, but it almost becomes more of an issue because of the way it's handled. I mean, I'm assuming some media outlet asked him about it. I think it's almost created more unnecessary
drama,
chatter and drama around it, because it's like, to me, it's like that should have been something that would have been like more impactful if you did that on training camp. All right, well now it's like, okay, we're not having a captain. Like, to me, it's like way more of like a message sender
or something like exit day.
Yeah, exit day. So there's some meaningful way to communicate that. I see both sides of it. I mean, I see what he's trying to do with it. Is it really a statement? Is there really nobody in there that can rock a C?
Well, that's kind of my thing too. Is there really nobody right now you could just place one on and then change it if it's, you know what I mean? If they were to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the shelf life of a coach in NHL right now is what, 3 years? I mean, 4 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was only
is he around for the rebuild?
Yeah,
he's 1 year down the tube. You're going to play a whole other season without a captain. It's like, I mean, God knows that they shit the bed again another year, which I don't see happening. It's like,
right.
I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter how long he lasts, but like, I'm not sure if this is an ego flex or if this is like a legitimate, actual, real, tangible coaching strategy. I struggle with this because I've seen a lot of coaches, played for them, worked with them, and there's a lot of like these interesting, weird mind games that guys do that are there to to get people to talk about it. Maybe obviously the media to talk about it.
Right.
But I'm not sure they're actually at the end of the day any bit of a needle mover as far as like actually creating culture and leadership in the room. It's like,
right.
I don't know. So I mean, there's definitely guys in the locker room that can rock a C. There's no question.
Well, I mean, especially too because Lawton has the A, so he's certainly a guy that you could pick.
Yeah. But I just think it was the way it was done, and this far out, it's such like a meaningless thing that like people like forget about, and it's just like, all right, we just have a C again. Like,
Yeah.
Versus, I think there could have been a more powerful way to deliver it, and why. But and timing wise too. But what do I know? I mean, this is my perspective. I see both sides, strategy, both sides, right? I mean, like, but I think it's more the timing and how it played out. I question the authenticity of that strategy, I guess.
Right. And especially too because just the overall makeup of it is, if he were to handle that on exit day, then that would be one of the main summer topics. Is who's a potential captain for next year, and then you go into camp, and again, like, there's so many different variables like we talked about. My next question is a little. Can I cut you off quickly just to finish that up? Like, to me, it would have been so much more powerful had he said, "We're that's up for grabs. We're going to earn it. We're still earning it. And it's going to be up for grabs in like training camp or something like that." Yeah.
And then at the time, if no one earned it or whatever, then you can make that statement. But it's like, to me, there was more of like a, like there's something there to grab. Like, who wants it? Like, dangling the C. It's like, who the fuck wants this thing? And to me, it was just like, I don't know. It was somewhat misplayed, but nonetheless, that's my opinion. I just wanted to finish on that because I'm thinking like you could have dangled the carrot there for someone to really step up versus like, oh, it's a long shot. No one's rocking the C now for the next year, so it's not even like
because then like publicly it makes everyone else think, like the people that don't have an understanding, or maybe the people that just don't get it. The like locker room psyche, I guess. It makes everybody think that we don't have any leaders.
Well, exactly.
And
what kind of faith is it showing in the team?
Right, exactly. But again, my next question is for you, like, if you were still coaching right now, and obviously there's a lot of offense, in the NHL, and like we see it all the time. Like young kids are doing the Michigan and Bedard and Trevor Zegers and all these other guys. They're doing all these different things that it just gets kids involved. And all of that stuff, and just overall, like there's just so much offense, and it's really the only way that kids today really know how to play. For you, if you were still coaching right now, how would you kind of balance that? Because there's like, to me, like if you were to balance, like, and say you had a kid that was younger and only really knew how to play offense, how would you kind of balance like their skill and the way that they've played the game their whole life versus like the way that they have to play to make the NHL type thing?
Yeah, I talk about this quite often with people asking about like this type of thing. Like the reality is like I don't know one coach that's teaching just offense or just defense, right? Mm-hmm. It's always a hybrid, right? And there's 5 guys on the ice, and everyone understands you have to score goals to win the games. You can't just play defense, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know a coach that certainly doesn't teach defense. I mean, the skill level of these guys is through the roof, but like you still teach defense. Like most of the video clips that you show as a coach are like, defensive structure. Like because the reality is the better defense you play, the more you're on offense, right? So if you can break up the play quicker, you're going to be turning on offense. So there's obviously some offensive strategy in playing defense, but like I think the best coaches that I've seen allow the skilled guys to be skilled in respective situations, right? I'm not suggesting that like you're trying to toe drag and dangle a player at your defensive blue line,
right? But
like on entries, you're trying to make plays, like you're trying to encourage to make plays. If you're going to be breathing down guys' backs for making turning pucks over, trying to make a legitimate play, like you're going to handcuff these guys and take away their confidence. So you have to encourage this. You have to improve and increase their confidence in it.
Right.
But there's like a green zone and a red zone. Like there's certain places that every hockey player, every coach knows you can't make, silly offensive plays because sometimes the play is just getting the puck out. Mm-hmm. Because if you turn the puck over far blue line, you can you still have 3/4 of the ice to go back and defend. Like
right.
I would highly encourage and promote their creativity.
Yeah.
Within boundaries. But yeah, I mean, like, when I was still coaching, every team does it. Like your first defenseman jump up in the play. You need your defenseman up in the play. Like you have to have a 4-man attack. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it was like, play conservative, 2 guys to stay back. I mean, sometimes you see 5 guys up in the play. I mean, it's like, like the second defenseman is like up there too. Like,
yeah.
But like, that type of stuff. And then again, like, like just this face-off plays. Like, I'm a really big believer in face-off plays, no matter what zone. Like having guys ready, try and spring some offense off the face-off.
Yeah.
If you have
the Flyers had the set play the other night and scored.
Exactly. Always have something. It doesn't always work out. Most of the time it doesn't. But like, always guys talking, little face-off play. But I'm also talking about like D-zone face-off play. Okay, we win the draw. If you have a fast guy that can really pressure the offensive defenseman, maybe it's a flip play of putting a guy into a puck race, putting him into an offensive situation versus a clean pass.
Right.
But it's like it's something where it puts pressure on on their team. It puts an offensive fast guy in a position to maybe create something out of nothing. I don't know. Like those are just little things, but certainly I would like highly promote their creativity and their ability to score goals and be creative, again, within boundaries. You don't want guys, hot dogging it in the wrong areas of the ice because that kills a team. But hard defensively in the D zone, and then let's go. Like let's get up and be creative here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and especially too, like one guy that I look at with the Flyers now with that is Frost, because Torts has said before, if you're going to make plays, at the blue line, get back and try to disrupt it. And I said to myself, I'm like, okay, that's fine, but that's not always going to go that way if you were to turn the puck over and then get back and make a play. But the last game against Pittsburgh, he had the turnover at the blue line. It was early in the second period, and the TV broadcast actually highlighted a little bit. They talked about it, and it was a play that Frost made where he tried to do a between the legs pass at the blue line. Well, he got back and broke up the pass from Letang into the slot, and then realized there was more ice to be had, and then went up on a 2-on-1, and he passed it to Farabee, he shot it wide, and it was one of the better chances early in the period, and that's kind of what I agree. I think, there are players that you can kind of. The one thing I don't love about the Flyers right now with the overall offense is some of the players that we have more talent than they're really being able to use, because the Flyers are playing such north-south hockey, because that's what Torts wants. And the guy that comes to my mind like right away is Wade Allison, because I would love to see Allison in the bumper on the power play, because he can shoot, and they haven't used it. And he's another guy where basically his entire game has gone from, make a couple plays. Like when Allison was up here before he got injured again, which unfortunately I have to continue to talk about the injuries with him, but he's a guy that he would have so much speed, like flying off the rush, and he wouldn't always have to dump it in. There'd be a little more east-west plays. Everything now has been north-south, dump it in, get off, finish your check type thing. And I'm like, I think there's more to be had, because at the same time, like, you have to balance, I feel like, too, us not scoring, but also, not limit as much of the offensive players that we have, because at the same time, again, like, we're not scoring, you know what I mean? So, like, I kind of feel like that there can be a balance of kind of letting, some more plays kind of happen at the same time, and take more risks, because especially now, right, for the Flyers with the last couple of games left, because they have nothing to lose, they're already out.
Right. Well, what I will say to that is, like, I don't think Torts is telling Wade Allison not to make plays.
Right, right.
I think it's probably a confidence issue, and based on his role, his kind of current role right now. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're a good hockey player and you have ice and space to make a play, you're not going to chip the puck in and go get it. You're going to make a play, right? It doesn't matter what line you're on. Like, I don't know of a coach that would ever tell a guy to never, ever try and make a play. I think it's risk versus reward. The best players in the world, succeed on their plays like 90% of the time, right? Or whatever the number is. It's a high percentage of execution. A guy like myself, my execution was like 1%. So, like, I had zero confidence with the puck. So I was just like, I know my limitations. I would probably just put the puck in the corner and try and run someone over, Yeah. But I didn't have a coach telling me that, because if I actually had my head up and had some space to make a play, I would actually probably try.
Right.
But however, a lot of times they're really squeezed out plays and you just put the puck in. But like, obviously Wade Allison is not me, and he's got way more skill. But I guess when guys go through injuries and they try to get comfortable and find their groove and get back into where they want, you keep the game simpler. Because it's predictable, where the puck's going. Your line mate generally knows the puck's going. But I think, like, any player that has space to make a play, they're going to make a play.
Right.
I don't know, but I think it's always how you make up for the mistake. Like, this is it, right? This is what I teach my kids around making messes around the house. It's like, it's okay to make a mess. It's okay to make a mistake.
You have to clean it up.
You just had to clean it up. You just got to respond. Get back. Hustle back and do your best. That's all we can ask for, because it's a game of mistake. It's a game of risk. Shit hits the fan and things happen.
Right.
Life is messy. You're gonna make a mess. There's no sense in getting mad about it.
Right.
You just like clean the goddamn thing up and move on. Like, that's it. Like, you just that's it. I mean, it seems pretty simple, but there has to be some sort of calculated risk and boundaries. But I mean, I would think that Wade's kind of had a tough go with being banged up and stuff. So maybe it's just getting the legs going, get on the forecheck, get a hit. He's a physical guy. He's one of the few guys that that actually run guys over. So I don't know, but I don't think Torts is telling him not to make plays. I don't think I've ever seen a coach like legitimately tell a guy, if you tell a guy to never make a play, he's never going to make a play, and that'll be it. Like,
No, for sure. Riley, dude, this has been great. Thanks so much. Best of luck with everything. And then, again, you guys are kicking ass over there, and I enjoy every episode. So thanks again for doing this, and we'll talk soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Chris.
All right. Talk to you, man.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.